Today on NewsWatch, something wicked comes this way. The massive storm that devastated the Midwest bears down on the Northeast. Plus, they're facing a huge fine and possibly jail, the courageous Christian couple who refused to compromise their faith. And Islam is supposed to be the fastest growing faith in the world, so why are so many abandoning their beliefs to follow Jesus Christ? Thanks so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. The deadly storm system responsible for much of the severe weather over the past few days is headed east. Parts of 12 states are under winter storm warnings from eastern Kansas to New England. The first snowfalls of this season bringing an end to an unusually warm December in many places. Caitlin Burke has the story.
It hasn't felt much like winter along the East Coast until now. Cities across the Northeast are gearing up to face the first snowstorm of the season.
I was picking up an extra snowblower, I went through an inventory and I realized I probably should have an extra one, couple shovels, some salt.
In New York State, the snowplows are ready.
First storm of the year, there's a lot of accidents. Hopefully they'll be very minor.
The weather out west gave a preview of what's to come. High winds, icy roads, and lots of canceled flights.
I've been stranded now in the airport for 50 hours.
In Texas, residents are still cleaning up from snow in some areas and tornadoes in others. Operation Blessing teams are working with churches and local emergency crews in both Rowlett and Garland, Texas. Two of the areas hit the hardest.
It's heartbreaking to see this community in this situation that occurred just one day after Christmas. But Operation Blessing is here to help these families begin to recover. Over the next few days, we're going to be meeting with the residents, the local emergency management, and the local pastors to find out what the greatest needs are and begin bringing resources in to meet those needs.
At least 11 people were killed in the tornadoes, and officials estimate close to 1,500 homes were destroyed. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
More Americans than ever are not satisfied with how the U.S. is waging the war on terror. In a new CNN ORC poll, 75% say they are not satisfied with how the fight against terrorism is going. 40% believe the terrorists are winning. A majority of those polled lay the blame at the feet of President Obama. 60% disapprove of how he's handling terrorism overall, while 64% disapprove of his strategy against ISIS. Disapproval of the president's war on terror is up among Republicans and Democrats. At least 80 people are dead in attacks by Boko Haram terrorists in northeastern Nigeria. The militants used rocket-propelled grenades and suicide bombers in Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State. Many of the victims died in an explosion outside a mosque. About 95 miles away in the town of Madagali, twin suicide bombers struck, killing dozens. The attackers are seen as a challenge to the Nigerian president's claim last week that security forces are winning the war against Boko Haram. The Middle East has been collapsing into a mess in recent years, from the Arab Spring disasters in Libya and Egypt to the rise of ISIS in Syria and Iraq. So what do Americans really need to know about what's going on in the Middle East? CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell put that question to some top experts. Here's what they told him.
More generally in the Middle East, what the American people need to know is that this is a time of unprecedented turmoil. Again, you have Iranian-backed proxies, whether they're militias or state actors or terrorist groups, that are largely in control of broad swaths of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and that are going to continue to aggressively destabilize the region because Iran is going to get tens of billions of dollars to support them, because Iran is going to get more conventional weapons, and ultimately Iran is going to get nuclear weapons. That is all going to happen in almost the first day of this deal. They're going to get the money immediately. Very soon they'll be getting more conventional weapons, and the nuclear umbrella they'll be developing will continue to deter oftentimes effective pushback against Iran's action in the region. That's why it's so important that we stand up to them now before they get stronger, before they realize that they can confront the U.S. and our allies throughout the region.
The Middle East is beginning to break apart. It's beginning to be subverted by terrorist elements like Al-Qaeda or like Al-Qaeda in the Sinai Peninsula. There's no coherent U.S. policy for how you deal with the Middle East. We don't recognize the realities of the Middle East, especially in Syria and Iraq, and we're running the gamut of nuclear proliferation. And we need to have a policy and put the resources behind the policy to correct that.
What they need to know is that this is not necessarily it's about the West. It's about problems and tensions and insecurities within these societies themselves. The state system, as devised by the Europeans, with arbitrary borders that didn't take into account ethnic and religious differences, was not adaptable, was not sustainable in an area of the world where people don't necessarily organize themselves along nation-state lines. If anybody in the United States thinks that they can turn their back on the Middle East and walk away, then they are kidding themselves. The Middle East is not like Vietnam, where you can pull your troops out and go home and be pretty confident that the Viet Cong are not going to follow you to wherever you're going, Chicago or Florida. The Middle East is going to come after you. The Middle East is coming to a neighborhood near you. And the United States will remain deeply connected both strategically and financially to the Middle East. So there's no detaching. If the United States wants to be a player in this region, a player diplomatically, it has to be a player militarily as well.
Former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert is going to prison. Tuesday, Israel's Supreme Court partially rejected his appeal for a bribery conviction. Starting February 15th, he'll serve 18 months in prison. The charges stem from his involvement in a controversial building project called the Holy Land Park while he was mayor of Jerusalem. Olmert said he never accepted a bribe but will respect the court's ruling. It is the first time a former Israeli prime minister will be sent to prison. I want to turn now to health news. It sounds strange, but it's working. New treatments based on viruses are the latest weapon in the fight against cancer. As Lori Johnson explained, so far, doctors are seeing amazing results on patients who previously had little hope.
It was very exciting.
Stacy Erholtz was amazed that the tumors on her forehead, collarbone, and spine went away after she was injected with a modified measles virus.
I think it's just remarkable. Who would have thought?
For 10 years, Stacy battled multiple myeloma, an incurable cancer of the blood. She tried chemotherapy, even 2 stem cell transplants, but nothing helped, until she agreed to be part of the Mayo Clinic's trial for the new treatment called immunotherapy.
Well, it's a very simple concept. Viruses naturally come into the body and they destroy tissue.
Other medical centers are also reporting success in their trials using different viruses to treat different cancers, such as the polio virus to shrink brain tumors and the HIV virus on leukemia. The viruses are engineered in a lab to attack the cancer cells while leaving the healthy ones alone. And they trigger the patient's own immune system to fight the cancer.
We recently have begun to think about the idea of a single-shot cure for cancer, and that's our goal with this therapy.
People like Stacy, who have been injected with a concentrated virus, admit it's a bit scary.
And I received enough, apparently, to vaccinate 100 million people, which was alarming, and I was happy to hear that after the fact.
Immunotherapy doesn't cure everyone, but if doctors continue to see success stories like Stacy's, using viruses to attack cancer could soon become an accepted treatment when all else fails. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Americans spent more money during this holiday season, and online shopping in particular saw a big spike. Spending was up nearly 8% from a year ago, according to the MasterCard Spending Pulse report. That report tracks retail sales from credit cards, cash, and checks from Black Friday to Christmas Eve. People especially spent more money on their computers and smartphones, with online shopping up a whopping 20%. But shopping at physical stores still accounts for the majority of spending during the holidays. Up next, silence for their Christian faith. Hear from the Oregon couple who refused to make a cake for a gay wedding. New York property and business owners may need to add a few new pronouns to their vocabulary. Updates to the city's anti-discrimination laws have them facing six-figure penalties if they misgender tenants or employees. According to a Breitbart report, the law says if a transgender person wants to be referred to as she or her instead of he and she, and isn't in incidents considered willful and malicious, they could be fined anywhere from $125,000 to $250,000. Spiked Online editor-in-chief Brendan O'Neill calls it a crisis of character in the West, where identities become subjective and not grounded in reality. A new development in the case of the Oregon Christian bakers who were fined $135,000 for refusing to bake a cake for a gay wedding. Melissa and Aaron Klein had refused to pay the fine while they appealed the ruling. OregonLive.com reports the state is seeking 9% interest and the right to seize other assets until the appeal is decided. Monday, Aaron Klein delivered a check for nearly $137,000 to a state agency. He also paid an additional $7,000 earlier this month. The money will be kept in escrow until an appeal is decided. The Klein's case grabbed national attention this year for its religious freedom and free speech implications. Earlier this year, CBN's Abigail Robertson spoke with the Christian couple who say their constitutional rights are at stake and they're not backing down.
The trouble for Aaron and Melissa Klein began 2 years ago when a woman came into their bakery asking for a wedding cake.
Usual day, she came in, sat down. I had some cake for her to try. I asked her for the bride and groom's name. She told me it was going to be two brides. At that point, I was apologetic. I said, "I'm sorry, we can't do this, and I did not mean to waste your time." And she got up and walked out. That was the extent of the encounter.
A few weeks later, the Kleins faced a civil complaint for failing to provide the couple equal service in a place of public accommodation, a citation equal to a traffic violation in the state.
We were of the mindset that we were fully within our rights. I mean, everybody believes that adage, that we reserve the right to refuse business for, any reason.
The couple originally sought just $400. The price of one of Melissa's custom cakes. But Oregon Labor Commissioner Brad Avakian decided they deserved more, awarding them $135,000 in emotional damages. He then ordered the Kleins to cease and desist from openly professing that they won't serve gay weddings because of their Christian beliefs. Since turning down the lesbian couple, the Kleins have had to close their business and have spent the past 2 years fighting to protect their religious liberty. And now they fight to protect their freedom of speech.
It's First Amendment, free speech. You're looking at a government agency telling a private individual what they can and cannot say. This should scare every American.
I'm shocked at the fact that I wasn't even charged. I wasn't even charged, and I'm being told that I have to be silent. And to me, that's like, I don't understand that. I don't see how somebody can tell me to be quiet. And frankly, I'm not going to be quiet about my faith.
Hans von Spakovsky of the Heritage Foundation says the Kleins could seek legal action against Commissioner Avakian for his clear prejudices in their case.
I actually think they have a potential civil rights case against Avakian. He clearly has acted in a biased, prejudiced manner. He's acted as judge, jury, and executioner in this case. And has acted punitively against them.
Spakovsky also feels the ruling is intended to intimidate other Christians.
I think the churches should be getting behind the Kleins, but I have no doubt that they're not saying anything about this because the clear intent of the state of Oregon and Commissioner Avakian is to intimidate the Christian community. That's why he's imposed this huge punishment on the Kleins. And it's very clear that intimidation is working.
Aaron and Melissa have seen mixed support from Christians in Portland.
Even the churches, no, I'm not saying all of them, but a percentage of the churches said basically they've made this mess, they're on their own.
Professor Michael Gurney from Portland's Multnomah University sees this mixed reaction as generational.
I think for the younger generation, they don't understand why Christians would refuse. For them, it's not that they see this, they would see the act of baking a cake as endorsing. It's a matter of equality. I think we're going to see more and more of this encroachment upon religious liberties. And I think that that we have to really be prepared for that.
Despite the hardships and long road ahead, Aaron and Melissa remain confident God will see them through.
For me personally, it has been, I mean, it's weird to say, but an amazing experience. I've learned so much through all this. God has taught me to trust him.
Abigail Robertson, CBN News, Portland, Oregon.
Nationwide, the Christian community and freedom advocates have rallied to the Klein's case, contributing more than $500,000 to help them with their defense. Coming up, hear why some experts believe the fastest growing religion in the world could be on the verge of collapse when we return. And welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Some reports say Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. If that is the case, why are so many Muslims leaving the faith? Aldil Hurd is on this story.
The headlines say Islam is going to be the largest religion in the world. But Islam is facing a crisis. The terrible deeds of ISIS, done in the name of Allah and following the violent example of Muhammad, have horrified many Muslims who are now questioning their faith. Missionaries to the Islamic world say more Muslims have converted to Christianity since 9/11 than during the entire 14 centuries of Islamic history. Many keep their conversions a secret, afraid for their lives. In London, this British college student from a Pakistani immigrant family left Islam after a lengthy study convinced him the Quran could not be true. We hid his face because Islam teaches that apostates must be killed.
If someone leaves Islam or becomes apostate, he is thrown out of his family. His family will be the first one to abandon him. His friends will reject him. He will be killed or he will be persecuted. A lot of my friends, they said, okay, this is the last time we are talking to you because you disrespected Prophet Muhammad. You disrespected Islam.
Imran has not yet become a Christian, but has studied the Bible and says Christianity is superior to Islam. Some ex-Muslims become atheists, but some discover a God who loves.
Because of ISIS, many people become Christian.
In Sweden, Pastor Fuad Rasho, himself an immigrant from Syria, has baptized more than 100 ex-Muslims.
Every week, I meet almost one or more who come to me. They come to me and like to know about Christianity, about Bible, because they are very angry. They are Muslim, as they don't like to continue to be Muslim.
When it comes to religion, Europe has been called the new dark continent, and some Muslims here feel trapped between atheism and radical Islam. But they see hope in Christianity. When Nassim Ben Iman came with his parents to Germany as immigrants from a Muslim nation, he remembers thinking that if Germany is a Christian nation, then Christianity is a dead, sinful religion.
Nakedness in the television is because of the Christian religion. Living together, not married, is because of the Christian religion.
But then Nassim discovered real Christianity and is today an evangelist reaching Muslims and non-Muslims for Christ.
When the people understand who Jesus is, they will more and more love Jesus and follow Jesus. And when the Muslims understand more and more what Muhammad is, what the Quran is, what the history is, then they will go farther away from Islam.
Islam is going to collapse.
Brother Rashid is the son of a Moroccan imam who lived for 15 years as a secret convert to Christianity. Now he hosts an Arabic-language Christian program called Daring Questions that challenges Muslims to question their faith.
Many Muslims actually, they say, if what ISIS is doing is Islam, I'm leaving it. Some of them are becoming atheists. There's a huge wave of atheism in the Arab world right now. And there is also a huge wave of conversion to Christianity following Jesus Christ. I have never seen something like this. Islam was never faced with this crisis before.
Nassim says Islam appears strong, but is only feeding off the spiritual void in many weak Christian nations.
Let me say, the greatest power of the Islam is the weakness of the Christians. That's what's happened in Germany and I think in America and all the Western countries.
Even while it seems that Islam is poised to overtake the West, Brother Rashid says Christians should not fear Islam, a faith that he is convinced is slowly dying.
Islam is not God's instrument to judge the West. I think people are afraid because of what they see on the news, but even violence is just a sign of collapse.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
And stay with us. There's more of CBN NewsWatch coming right up. A group of cloistered nuns in Philadelphia are celebrating 100 years of nonstop prayer, and they're seeking 100 more. The Roman Catholic Holy Spirit Adoration Sisters, also known as the Pink Sisters, have been holding nonstop prayer in Philadelphia's Chapel of Divine Love for an entire century. Now, to address their shrinking numbers and ensure their prayers continue for another century, they've begun quietly reaching out to grow their order while maintaining their secluded life. There were once as many as 40 nuns living in the Philadelphia convent. Now there are only 20. The time has come now for your Tuesday Tweetable. This is a message meant to inspire you and be shared with others. Consider this: past mistakes can't erase future success when Christ remains at the center. Remember, he promises if we come to him, our mistakes, our sins are cast into the sea of forgetfulness and never held against us again. Make time to post, tag, tweet, and share that word, and make this a terrific Tuesday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. Take the time to tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that online as well. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Have a terrific Wednesday, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.